Hey everyone! I got a lot to cover, so let's just get right to it. My cultural artifact presentation is on this painting right here. Well, actually, I think it's a digitally made painting, but you get the picture. A hand-rolled cigarette with the words "Never Knows Best" written on the side. So why'd I choose this image? Well, to explain that, I'm going to need to fill you in on a lot of its context. So buckle up, because there's quite a bit to it. This picture comes from an anime called Fooly Cooly, or FLCL for short. Now, anime is a French word meaning animation, although the Japanese kind of stole it, and now anime is much more synonymous with Japanese animation. I'm sure everyone here has at least heard or seen of some form of anime, whether it be just Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. The Studio Ghibli films are pretty popular in the West too. A lot of anime gets a bad rap for being childish or just way too wacky. While that's definitely not always the case, Fooly Cooly is one of the craziest shows I've ever seen. I mean, just look at it. The characters are sporadic, the humor is off the walls at times, and the plot is as coherent as Charlie Sheen. But with all this chaos, you can still find a lot of meaning that manages to draw you in and keep you interested. Okay, so now you've got a general idea of the medium that this artifact is from. But then, how did this work its way into this? Alright, just bear with me for a little bit longer and we'll actually start talking about it. First, I need to explain the character who is smoking it. Even if she isn't shown in the picture, I think her background is very important. Her name is Mimimi, and she's a homeless girl living in a somewhat urban Japan. Although she is one of the main characters, not a lot is really known about her. She's often seen walking around town or just hanging around her usual favorite spots. The fact that she's homeless is often mentioned in passing as if it's no big deal, and if you were to study her personality and mannerisms, you probably wouldn't be able to guess that she's homeless. You might think she's kind of odd, but not homeless. Just a teenage girl living a carefree lifestyle. Finally, that's all out of the way, so now we can get back to the reason we're here. So what originally strikes me about this picture is just how so many people can look at it and get a different response. I'm sure smokers and non-smokers can look at this image and take away drastically different meanings. Smoking is deeply ingrained into our culture, and it's been the cause of a lot of debates for decades. The words "never knows best" scrolled on the side of the cigarette by the same person who will inevitably smoke it says a lot to me. It's almost like she's acknowledging that smoking isn't good for her, but she continues to do it anyway. The cognitive dissonance involved in enjoying an activity that you know is inherently bad for you is mentally and emotionally splitting. Getting back to Mimimi, it's worth it to note that she doesn't have many friends. She's known as an outcast, but seems to act a bit clueless about it all, and that goes double for her living situation. As I've mentioned before, the fact that she's homeless is never made into a big issue. Her nonchalant attitude towards the whole ordeal makes the other characters and the audience believe that she's still doing okay. But this small scene that shows her smoking the cigarette says otherwise. With just a short moment and a little imagery, it's made glaringly clear that she is well aware of what's going on, almost like a cry for help. It doesn't take a lot to realize that if you're homeless and your main focus is having a cigarette at the end of the day, then your priorities are in need of fixing. But she doesn't fix them. Mimimi never says why she wrote those words on the cigarette. Nobody else is even around to notice. This could suggest that the message was meant as a reminder to herself. Never knows best being similar to the phrase mother knows best. Thinking about it in that way makes it sound like she's trying to provide parenting advice for herself that is otherwise absent in her home life. Never meaning to never try to change or improve yourself at the risk of failure. After all, you can't fail if you never try to begin with. Quitting smoking can be the hardest thing anyone can do, and in Mimimi's case, she's doing it alone without any guidance. With only oneself to rely on, it could be easy to fall into a nihilistic pattern of thought, in which case never would truly know what's best. Something else I really like about this picture is the fact that if you were to smoke the cigarette, the message would slowly disappear, the guilty feelings fading away along with the message itself. Never knowing what's best for you, or at least never coming to terms with it, can lead to destructive behaviors. If you want a radically different perspective on this artifact, then let's just take it to the United States circa 1950. Same place we live in now, but a very different culture. A guy could get off from a long day at work, walk into a bar and unwind with a nice cigarette. There was no guilty conscience or negative stigma. I'm guessing this picture wouldn't have much of an impact on anyone from that time. Especially considering the fact that those people were probably seeing hundreds of cigarette ads on a daily basis, and not a single one with negative connotations. With that perspective in mind, while looking at this image, it really makes me question if ignorance is really bliss. So there's a couple perspectives on this artifact that offer different opinions on the subject, but how can we tell what the actual meaning of this piece was? Well, if anybody were to know, it would have to be the director, right? I wish. In an interview, director Kazuya Tsurumaki explained that he had just happened to see a postcard from London that featured a cigarette with English writing on the side and thought it looked aesthetically pleasing. Kind of a letdown when I first started researching for this project, but does that really change anything about what I said before? The words still mean a lot to me and a lot to the character. Her attempts at hiding her hardships from the world is still compelling, and the specific words that the director chose match the story perfectly. So there you have it. That's a few perspectives from American culture, one even from a different time period, on an artifact that was inspired by a postcard from London, but is featured in a Japanese anime. Anime, again, originally being a French word. I hope that's enough culture for you. If you liked what I talked about, then I would highly recommend watching Fooly Cooly. It's probably important that I clarify that Mimimi is not the main focus of the show. There's a lot going on in that world and it's all really interesting. Thanks for listening!